Hello everyone, my name is Jeremy and I'm one of the pastors here at The Bridge, and I'm so glad that you decided to connect with us today. If you're watching this on Sunday morning, I encourage you, jump into our live chat. Say hi, introduce yourself. We have some great hosts there that would love to connect with you. If you're joining us for the first time, we want to welcome you. We just finished a great series by our lead pastor, Scott Landry, called Pronouns. If you want to watch it, just head to our website, bridgechurches.ca/ondemand, and you can catch that and many of our other past series there. Today, our campus pastor, Chris McNaughton, will share a message called Jesus in Plain Sight that explores the reality that so often God is at work in our lives, even when we don't see it or feel it. Now, before we kick things off with our first song, I want to read a verse that's been particularly meaningful to me lately. I don't know about you, but as we head into February, I'm tired. And not a I need more sleep tired, although I definitely take it, but more of a weary kind of tired. And I feel like today I'm not the only one. Jesus, speaking in Matthew 11, says this: "Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you'll recover your life. I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly." Our first song today is called Echo, and the first part of the song goes like this: "When night has fallen, when fear is common, still you're calling me. When faith is lost and my hope exhausted, you will be my strength." Whether you're joining us on Sunday morning or watching this on demand later in the week, it's our hope and prayer that through this service, you would find Jesus. And in doing so, that you would discover the rest and the strength that he promises.
Night has fallen, when fear is coming, still you're calling me. When faith is lost and my hope exhausted, you will be my strength. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. Yeah, I've decided I'm not giving up, 'cause you won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. In every season, you keep repeating promises to me. Now there's no stopping what you have started until it is complete. When my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. Yeah, I've decided I'm not giving up, 'cause you won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo. Your love is holding on and it won't let go. I feel it breaking out like an echo, echo in my soul. Soul, in my soul. Soul, when my mind says I'm not good enough, God, you're enough for me. I've decided I'm not giving up, 'cause you won't give up on me. You won't give up on me. Your love is holding on and it won't let go.
Wow, such a powerful reminder for us today that God's love is holding on to each and every one of us, and it will never let us go. We are coming up on nearly a year since we decided to move our services online. I tell you, it's hard to believe at times that it's been that long. But from the beginning, we have been saying that while this building is closed, the church is not. And together, as a community, we have continued to pursue our vision to build irresistible bridges between the unchurched and Jesus. Now, admittedly, it's difficult sometimes to gauge the impact of our offerings to God in this online context. Still, just this past week, Scott shared with the team several amazing stories of people who have joined our community due to finding us online. People who have never stood inside this building, but who have been welcomed into our church. If you're one of those people today, let me just say that we are so glad that you're here and that you have welcomed us into your home. For those of you who consistently and faithfully give of your time, treasures, and talents, know this: God continues to work and lives continue to be changed. As we share each week, if you're interested in supporting us financially, there are 4 easy ways that you can do so. You can write a check and put it in the mail and someone will grab it. You can go to bridgechurches.ca/give and find out the information there. You can download our Church Center app and give that way, or you can text any amount to 84321. Now, typically during this time, we share a few announcements with you, but not today. Today, I want to ask you a question. What number are you? Are you a 1? Are you a 4? Maybe you're a 7. A 9? Do you know what number you are? Are you confused yet? I was. I remember walking into a conversation with a group of young adults who were sharing what numbers they were, and I had no idea what they were talking about. But then I took an Enneagram test. And through that process, I discovered that I'm a 4. More importantly, I found out some information about myself that helped me to know myself better. And that's what I hope will happen for you as well. The Enneagram reveals 9 different personality types, each personality type assigned a number. Starting next week, Scott will begin a new series called Know Thyself. I'm excited for this one. Now, it's not a series on the Enneagram. This is a series about Christianity and the Bible through the lens of the Enneagram. You're going to be given the opportunity to take the test, find out what number you are, and have conversations around these ideas in your home using discussion guides that will be available for download later this week at bridgechurches.ca/groups. I hope that after 4 weeks, you will know what number you are, but more importantly, that you will see why that matters to you and those that you love. Are you excited to find out what number you are? I hope so. Be sure to join us next week as we kick off the new series, Know Thyself. Until then, check out this video. Maybe you can see some similarities between yourself and some of these Enneagram types under quarantine. I know I did.
If you can sanitize your hands, but your neighbor can't, you're gonna get it.
It's so hard not to have anybody to wait on.
Gals, if we're gonna be homebound with our kids, our Instagram photos might as well be so cute.
I refuse to stockpile. I won't do it. It just doesn't work with my whole minimalist vibe. This is my moment.
Just now, people are learning how to wash their hands properly.
I'd like to invite all my best friends to my virtual quarantine party.
Just let me handle it, because I've got it handled.
I already take a daily nap, but I've been toying with the idea of a bi-daily nap for some time now.
I am surrounded on every side, can't see the light of day, but I am persuaded beyond all hope, you won't let go of me. I stake my claim on every word you say, you will not be late. I will sing through fire and thunder, 'cause you are on my side. that your promises will hold together, and I will dwell in your hope of your love forever. I am convinced that your promises will hold together, and I will dwell in your love, and I will sing through fire and thunder, 'cause you are on my side. I trust you with my life. I know my story, it isn't over, even against all odds. Oh, you are a faithful God. That's who you are. Oh, you are a faithful God. Oh, you're faithful God.
He came into the world he created, fully human, fully God. But some people couldn't see it. He wasn't what they were looking for. Born in a barn, no sword in hand. A man from Nazareth who taught us to take care of the least of these. He was totally unexpected, which is incredible because his people's own teachings were full of signs about him. He was, is, and always will be the one everything points to. But it wasn't just his life that people had a hard time seeing. He died, and then he came back to life. No one saw that coming. He suffered and he died, but now he is alive, and the depth of his love is poured out for all to see. Do you see it?
I hate lines. I know no one likes lines, but I hate lines. I mean, when I picture hell, I think of fire and lines. I think a line I am in, I don't know where it's going, but for some reason I can't get out and I have to be there. Okay, I'm exaggerating a little bit, but I really hate lines, and I hate waiting. And maybe you're like that as well. I mean, I go to the mall, especially around Christmas time, and you know, the malls where we used to go a long time ago, and lines, well, it's all something we'll read about in history books, but I used to go to the mall and I would see a huge line for one particular store. You know, they'd go down the aisle and curve around and basically take over the whole mall. And I just would look at people and go, why? I mean, what's in that store that you want so badly? I mean, I can really think of nothing that I want badly enough to wait in line that long. I mean, I just can't think of it. I just hate lines. And you know who's not helping me with this? Do you know who's not helping me with my patience? This guy. Amazon, that beautiful smiling face. I mean, I love what they do, but they're not helping me with my patience. Because, you know it, I can go online today, order something, and have it at my door tomorrow. Tomorrow, right? I mean, if truth be told, it says by 8 p.m., but if it's not there by noon, I'm starting to get a little anxious. Certainly if it's not there by supper time, I'm getting a little anxious. I mean, I expect it there immediately. I expect it there the next day. I don't expect to wait. I mean, if I go online and I see something that's going to take, 4 days, a week to get there, I think that's ridiculous. I mean, I look at the website and go, what are you, trying to bring it over on a horse and carriage? I mean, it doesn't matter that it's on the other side of the universe. I mean, I am trying to get it from the other side of the planet to my door in less than 24 hours. I'm just used to that now. I'm used to that, and maybe you are as well, especially with this pandemic. We've been ordering so many things online. It's just become a way of life, and we expect it to be here as quickly as possible. We expect it to be here the next day, and we're used to not having to wait. But a lot of us have to wait for things, especially when it comes to God. You might be waiting on something from God, and you're just waiting, and you're waiting, and you're waiting, and you're waiting, and you're expecting Him to show up. You're expecting Him to do something. You're waiting with anticipation. And it seems like He's nowhere to be found. I mean, you look around and go, God, where are you? Come on, show up. I want you to do this, please. And you can't find the guy. I mean, you just cannot find him, and it feels like he is just not showing up the way he needs to show up. Well, I want to talk about a group of people who waited a very long time as well. They were waiting on God for actually a promise that God made them. But they were waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. You see, if you don't know the Bible is basically split up into two different parts. There's the Old Testament and there's the New Testament. There's the Old Covenant that God made with Abraham and his descendants. And there's the New Testament, the New Covenant that God was going to make through Jesus for all people. And if you've got a Bible and you're reading the Old Testament and you want to go to the New Testament, what do? You flip the page, right? You know, maybe there's a cover page in between there, but you flip the page and you're there. Or if you've got a phone and you're using the YouVersion Bible app or another Bible app, you swipe with your thumb and you're there. And you're there. You know, we read in the Old Testament about these people who are waiting for their Messiah. And then we flip the page or we swipe our thumb. And there he is. He shows up. The all too familiar Christmas story, right? I mean, we know it. We know the characters. We know he's coming. We know. But they didn't. They didn't. Because there's a lot of time in that page flip, in that finger swipe. There's a lot of time. Between Malachi to Matthew, the last book in the Old Testament to the New Testament, is 400 years. That page flip, that swipe, that is a very long amount of time for the people involved. You see, they had heard stories and they were anticipating God to show up, to be a Messiah. And then nothing. And then they wait. And they wait. And they wait. And they wait for a very long period of time. They wait and they wait and they wait for God to show up. And basically, it feels like he doesn't. It's often referred to as the silent years, the 400 years of silence. You see, they had grown up on the stories of a burning bush and God parting the Red Sea and God using prophets to tell people what they wanted him to do or what he wanted them to do. They're used to this. They're used to God showing up in very practical, tangible ways. And then silence. And then nothing. It feels like God just kind of turned off the channel. God just said, you know, I'm done with this and stopped. And for 400 years, they wait. The Christmas story we know so well. None of those characters were even around. I mean, Mary and Joseph weren't around. The wise men weren't around. The guys hanging out with sheep. None of those guys were ever even alive yet. Their parents weren't alive. Their grandparents weren't alive. They weren't on the scene at all. A lot happened in that flip of the page. So much happened in that flip of the page. And they were waiting on God. They're waiting on God for a promised Messiah. And they wait day after day, which turned into week after week, year after year, to generation after generation. I mean, they waited for a long time for God to show up. And it just felt like he wasn't. And they wondered, would he ever show up? We have the benefit of hindsight. We know that Jesus is coming. But they did not. They didn't. But here's what Paul writes about that Christmas story. Here's what Paul writes about Jesus, or God finally speaking once again after those 400 years of silence. He writes this. When the fullness of time had come, God sent forth his son, born of a woman, born under the law, to redeem those who were under the law, so that we might receive adoption as sons. I mean, this is the gospel message right here, isn't it? I mean, he's saying that there was a law that was just really too burdensome. I mean, you just could not do it. It was too heavy. It was too big. You could not ever get there. But what Jesus did, Jesus stepped into that moment and said, listen, it's not about religion anymore. It's about a relationship with me. It's about me adopting you as a son and as a daughter. That's what it's going to be about from now on. That's the gospel message. And it's easy to read this and miss a very important part. Here's what I want to point out. The fullness of time. When it was the right time, when it was the perfect time, when it was a time that needed to be there, that's when the rest of this happened. The rest of this happened only at the right time. Paul writes this way to the Romans. He says, you see, at just the right time, when we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly. He died for the ungodly. Meaning, if you're not a God, you're not perfect, that's you. He died for you at just the right time. He was born and came into this world at just the right time. Well, that kind of begs the question, doesn't it? Why was it the right time? Why was it the right time? What made that time the right time? Why do you need to wait 400 years to fulfill a promise? Well, you might be hearing that and thinking something like, well, it's God. I'm sure it was the right time because it's God. Just that's what God does. He does perfect things and his timing is perfect. And that's true. But there's a lot of things that happen in those 400 years to make it the right time. There's 400 years where God was at work. And there's so many things we could discuss, but for the sake of time, I want to highlight 3 things that God was doing in that time. So here we go. Number 1, there was a unifying language. There was all of a sudden a unifying language. About 350 years before Jesus was born, this guy shows up. This guy is Alexander. You might know him as Alexander the Great. And his role and his job and what he wanted to do is he wanted to spread the Greek culture and language as far and as wide as he could. And in about just 12 years, he conquered the whole known world. I mean, this guy was good at what he did. And as a result, Alexander the Great had spread the language of the Greeks from Athens to Egypt to the border of India. I mean, this guy spread his language and his culture as far and wide as he possibly could. And as a result, because of Alexander and the Greek influence, the gospel could be spread and the New Testament written in primarily one language. You see, even though that Jesus spoke Aramaic, the New Testament was written in Greek because there's all sorts of other dialects around, but because of Alexander's influence, everybody knew Greek. Everybody, even if it wasn't their primary language, it certainly was a secondary language. That's how prolific it was. Everyone, if you could speak, you could go basically anywhere, speak Greek, and people would understand you. So he spread his language and his culture all around. And as a result, the gospel message could be shared in one language. Sure, it was translated very quickly to other languages. They wanted to spread it as far and wide as they could, but they could spread it over a incredible geographic area in a very short amount of time with just one language. Another thing that happened was this. It was an incredible time of peace. It was an incredible time of peace. In fact, it's often referred to as the Pax Romana, or the Roman peace. Sure, it wasn't perfect. Sure, it wasn't always peaceful, but relatively speaking, it was a long period of peace. So here's what this means. If Jesus were born a century earlier, he would have lived in a time with political unrest, incredible political unrest. There's all sorts of infighting and fighting for power, and not the greatest time to spread the gospel. If Jesus had been born a century later, there would be no Jesus state at all. The Jews have been expelled in 70 AD and again in 135 AD. A century earlier, unrest, no Jewish state at all. A century later, I mean, this was the perfect time. There's so much peace, relatively speaking, to all the times around it. And as a result, the gospel message was able to be spread. Peace made travel and commerce possible. Because there's peace, people were able to trade and to travel and do business like they never had been before. Which leads to the third point. There's an ease of travel. There's an ease of travel they just didn't have before. In fact, Roman military had also banned piracy. Now, why is this important? Well, there's a guy who's fairly well known by the name of Paul who liked to use boats to travel on his missionary journeys. Paul could take ships from Antioch to Cyprus and Asia Minor and to Greece. I mean, he could use the waterways to spread the gospel message and get places in a shorter period of time because, other than some bad weather and shipwreck, which, spoiler, did happen, but he was able to travel with relatively in a safe time and relatively without worry all around his known area. I mean, he was able to travel like really they never had been able to do before. In fact, Roman roads were designed to quickly move their armies and link the Roman Empire. Basically, it was a time of peace, but it was an imposed time of peace. The Romans had rule, and they were taking over the territories, and they wanted to make sure they could get wherever they needed to go to make sure they enforced the Roman law. So if someone wasn't doing what they wanted them to do or wasn't paying their taxes or whatever, armies could get there fairly quickly, take care of business, and go home. I mean, that's what they did. They used these Roman roads. In fact, you've probably heard the saying, all roads lead to Rome. And the infrastructure they built was just amazing. Look at this. 250,000 miles of road systems, which actually is about 50,000 of those were considered those stone pathways, or sometimes referred to or called super highways. I mean, they're not exactly the highways we think of today, but for the day, this was an incredible achievement. I mean, the infrastructure that happened made travel incredibly easy. They were able to travel around to different territories like never before. In fact, the Roman roads and the freedom of safe travel would be used by Paul and others to spread the gospel across the empire. They were able to move like never before, to share the gospel like they never would have been able to do before. You see, there's so many things that have happened in these 400 years that have made it just the right time, but a few of them was a united language, a unifying language that they never really had before. There's a time of peace and able to travel like they had never really done before. They were able to share the gospel message like that wouldn't have been possible the same way 100 years earlier, 100 years later. It was the perfect time. Now, why do I share this? Why do I talk about this morning? Well, for a couple of reasons. One, I hope it's somewhat interesting. We don't often talk about it, what happens between the Old and New Testament. But more than that is I bet there's something you are looking for God to. You are waiting on God for. You're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're wanting him to show up. And it feels like he's not there. It feels like some pretty silent years. And it feels like he's just not going to show up the way you want him to show up. But I never want us to confuse silent years with static years. I never want us to confuse silent years with static years. See, in those 400 years, they may have been silent, but they weren't static. Those 400 years you may not have heard God in the ways they had expected, and certainly having God here on earth and Jesus, they hadn't had that, but they were waiting, and it felt like he just wasn't there. But he was, and he was working. He was not static, he was not stagnant, he was not standing still, he was not standing on his hands, he was not on vacation. He was at work, making sure that the world was set, that the stage was set, making sure it was just the right time to enter his son into this world. He was not static, although it may have felt silent. And when I think of this topic, certainly there's times in my life that I can relate. One of the things that I had to think about was when before I came here, I was working at a church in Niagara Falls. I've been a youth pastor for a number of years, decided it was time to move on. And I was looking for a church, and I looked and looked and looked, and I found what I thought was perfect. I thought there's so much potential. I thought, this could just be where I spend the rest of my career possibly, or at least for a whole number of years. I was planning on being there for a very long time. And the first year was pretty good, and the second year was pretty rough, to be honest. In fact, I found out later just how bad it was on Violet, on my wife. She was done after 2 years and wanted to leave. Things were really, really bad. And we had some great family moments but the job was not what we hoped it would be. And for some reason, I felt like, yeah, we've done 2 years, but I feel like we need to give it a third. I feel like we need to give it a third year just because I feel like if things aren't right by then, if things aren't where we want it to be by then we can go. I feel like we hadn't kind of earned the right to leave yet. And I felt like we just had to stay a little bit longer, at least get it better than what it is now. So we stayed around another year and we decided, okay, it's time to go. And we were looking around for a church to be at. And I was searching and searching and searching, and I looked and looked and looked, and I couldn't really find much. Anything online that I found, I looked at, I said, honestly, I don't really want to be at that church. And especially we had a little one now, we had a daughter, and we didn't want to be in a church that was just the church where Daddy works. We didn't want that to be the only thing that really keeps us there. We wanted a church that, one, I was excited about and passionate about and excited about the mission and vision of the church. But I had a kid, and I had another one that we were hoping would come along shortly. And we were praying for a church that would embrace our children and love on our children and show them God's love, and that they would develop relationships with the youth or the small group leaders, and that they would get passionate about loving God and serving God. We wanted them to be a part of that kind of church, not just the church that Daddy works at. So we're praying and praying and praying and looking and looking and looking, and we couldn't find anything. So we said, well, where do we want to go? And of course we said, well, we really have to come back to Ottawa. I mean, Violet had another job she can come back to, but we had a real passion for Ottawa. We love the Ottawa area, and we were praying and praying and praying. And we kind of felt like we were supposed to come back here, but we didn't know to what. We didn't know to what. So we were praying and praying and praying, and we're looking and asking around, and we heard about the bridge and some amazing things that the bridge was doing, and how they wanted to reach the community, and that they're really about building these bridges between unchurched people and Jesus Christ. And we said, hey, that's what we want to be a part of. So I called up the church and I said, hey, are you guys looking? I don't know what you've got available, or if you have anything available, but I'd love to be a part of whatever you've got. And they told me, thanks, but we're not looking. And I was like, all right, that kind of sucks. And I was looking and looking. I just couldn't find anything. And anyway, we decided to move back to Ottawa. And we had 1 week here at the bridge that we came to kind of check the place out again. We heard some great things about, and we loved it. We loved the bridge. We loved what the pastor was talking about. We loved where it was heading, and we loved the program it had for our children. I said, yeah, we're going to be a part of this church. If I could be on staff one day, that would be amazing. But even if I have to go kind of get a real job, and this is our church that we attend and I serve at, then that's the way it is. But we just didn't know. And we're praying and praying and praying. And to make a long story a little bit shorter, I was able to come on staff, and someone connected me to Scott, and a position opened up where I was able to come on staff here. And there's times when I was in Niagara Falls, when I was just praying, I just felt God had abandoned us. I felt that God was taking us here, and He didn't even give us the picture. Like, even if He said, okay, well, here's what you're going to, here's kind of the whole plan. I want you here for a couple of years, and then I want you to go here. Okay, I can deal with that. But there's times I was just standing there and praying, going, I don't know what to do. I mean, was I wrong? Did you not call us here? What do you want from us? Are you even out there? And I was looking and searching, and just felt God was not there. And I was waiting and waiting and waiting on God, and it felt like He was not answering. The other thing I think of is the launch of the Bridge Online, this online campus. And as much as we certainly didn't pray for the pandemic, wouldn't pray for the pandemic, we had big plans, to be honest with you. Our team had come together really months before this whole thing happened. And we were praying and vision casting, and we had big plans. In fact, one of my positions that I was hired on for, and in fact the main position, was as a campus pastor. I was going to help run this campus, but the big part was I was going to help launch another physical campus. And just before the pandemic, I was driving around to different towns outside of the Ottawa area and checking out what they had. I was doing research and seeing their growth and the projected growth, and I was looking to start another physical campus. And we were having these conversations, and then of course, everything got turned upside down. And we sat there and went, God, what are you doing? I mean, we were waiting, we were expecting, I thought you had plans for us. I mean, I was ready to do stuff. I mean, we had to have our team together. We were ready to storm the hill. I mean, let's go. And then it all changes. And it was going to be so easy just to sit there going, God, you're not there. You're not there. But little did we know, just like when he was working in those 400 years of silence, he was working away. And with the benefit of hindsight, we're able to see some of those now. We had to step out in faith and go, I just trust that you're going to step in, God. But we had to wait and wait as well because we just didn't know. And here's just a few things that have happened over the past 11 months or so since we've been online. People have tuned in, really, from other provinces and even into the U.S. We've had a reach that we never would have had with physical campuses. If we had a church in Canada and we had a church 40 minutes away somewhere, maybe Smiths Falls, we would have reached more people than we were just reaching with a one campus, but we never would have reached the amount of people we're able to reach right now online. You are watching online. Maybe you're from another province or out of Canada, and you're watching simply because we are online, and you never would have tuned in the same way if we're in a physical campus. Since we've been online, we've had 60 people give their lives to Christ. We had 60 people give their lives to Christ. Lives changed, eternities changed. And I'm willing to bet there's more. Those are 60 people who clicked the button when we said who wants to give their life to Christ. We asked them to click the button online so we could follow up with them, connect with them, pray for them. 60 people have done that. I bet there's more people in their living room who just didn't want to click on it. They wanted to remain anonymous for whatever reason. But 60 people gave their lives to Christ since we have been online. Christmas Eve, we had about 1,800 people attend our Christmas Eve service. We've had about 1,800. When we calculate how many devices were watched, times that by a relatively small multiple, we think that there's about 1,800 people that tuned in for our Christmas Eve message to hear about Jesus coming to earth and the message of hope that Scott spread. And there's so many more stories in this, but when I think of how the pandemic started, when I think of we had no idea where it was going, when I think of we just didn't know if God was going to show up, and then I look at now and how he has worked in incredible ways, quite honestly, I'm amazed. And when we get stories that we pass around as a staff that people share that, they have never been in our physical building, but they're attending week after week. Someone invited them to Christmas or invited them to something else, and since then, week after week after week, they have been tuning in and hearing the message. We have people joining Alpha online. We have people who have never darkened the door of any church tell us that they've been invited to Christmas Eve or to something, and week after week after week, they've tuned in. We never would have prayed for the pandemic, and there was times we were praying, asking God what on earth was going on. It felt like he just wasn't around. But sure enough, he was working. Sure enough, he was moving and doing what only he could do. So the question I have to ask this morning is, what are you waiting on? What are you waiting on? What are you praying to God about right now? What are you waiting for God to step in and do something miraculous in? Maybe it's one of your kids' lives that just seems to be a disaster, and you're waiting and praying for God to give them a loving and holy kick in the rear end. You're just waiting and waiting and waiting for God to show up and work in your child's life because you are at the end of your rope. You have no idea what to do besides get on your knees and pray. You are out of options, so you're praying to God, step in and do something in my son or my daughter's life. Maybe you're praying that about your husband or your wife. Maybe they're going down a dark road and they've become very different from the person you fell in love with and married. And you're praying and praying and praying for God to step in to their lives. Maybe it's a job that you're waiting on. Many of us are unemployed these days. And you're waiting and waiting and waiting for God to show up. And you're waiting and you're waiting. And maybe it just feels like God is nowhere to be found. It just feels like you're searching and searching and searching, and you just cannot find him. You're searching and searching and searching, and you just don't see him anywhere. Well, my hope and my prayer and my challenge is that we would never confuse silent years for static years. We would never confuse God's silence for God's inaction. We would never confuse silent years for static years. Now, I am not promising anything. I'm not saying everything's going to work out perfectly. I'm sorry. I wish I could. I'm not promising that. I'm just suggesting that God has worked in incredibly powerful ways before when it seems like he wasn't around. When we searched and searched and searched for God, we didn't find him. But maybe, just maybe, he was in plain sight all along. Maybe, just maybe, he is at work in your life in ways that you just don't see, and maybe you never thought possible. I'm not promising anything, but my hope and my prayer is that we cling to God in this tough time. That as you search and you pray for God, and you ask him to show up, that you trust that he would. Let me pray. Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you for today. I thank you for the opportunity to share this message. It's not easy, and it is so difficult to do. Lord, it's so easy to get up here and talk, but it's hard to trust in you when it feels like you're nowhere around, when it feels like you've given up on us. May we not give up on you, because we know you haven't given up on us. You love us, and you're there. I don't know if you're going to show up and act the way you want us to act, but you are still there, and you're helping us through. May we cling to that today. In your name we pray. Amen.
Walking around these walls, I thought by now they'd fall, but you have never failed me yet. Waiting for change to come, knowing the battle's won, for you have never failed me yet. Your promise still stands, great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands, this is my confidence, you've never failed me yet. I know the night won't last, your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praise again. Jesus, you're still enough. Keep me within your love. My heart will sing your praise again. Your promise still stands, great is your faithfulness, faithfulness. I'm still in your hands, this is my confidence, you've never failed me yet. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I've seen you move the mountains, and I believe I'll see you do
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. As we wind things down, we want you to know that if you need help, if you need to talk, if you need prayer, if you need anything, we want to be here for you. To get in touch with us, simply go to bridgechurches.ca and at the top of the page, click Contact Us. Let us know and someone will be in touch. We hope that you'll join us next week for the beginning of our new series, Know Thyself. Until then, I want to leave you with one of the verses from the song we just sang. I know the night won't last. Your word will come to pass. My heart will sing your praises again. Much love, and God bless.